hell. Going through hell tonight. And let's see. So if you're watching this later, we have a Discord. There's a link to the Discord pinned to the top of the live chat. There's a link to the Discord in the description of the video. Every Tuesday, we do a topic discussion that is usually voted upon via a poll in the Discord. So we've done hell, reincarnation, Gnosticism recently, Marcion, bunch of cool stuff. So if you're into that kind of thing, Discord's a good place to be. And every Tuesday is that kind of stuff. Then every Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday is Bible study. So Thursday, we do something outside of the canon. So we're in the Book of Giants and Enoch. Right now, Saturday, we're going to start the Gospel of Judas. We just did the Gospel of Thomas. And then Sunday is something in the canon every week. Get rid of that. So 3 Bible studies a week. Discord has an events page. It's the easiest place to keep track of everything because we use 2 different YouTube channels. So go to Discord. It's the place. Tonight's hell, though, which should be interesting. I got you on the Discord. All right, Discord's good. A hot topic, you say? Yes. I do say. David. Hey, my family, this should be a hot topic tonight. I love all of you. Yes, it should. It should be good. We've had a good series of topics as of recently, and I don't think we've agreed upon anything for next week. So we should go back to actually running a poll. Tampa, hold on, I see you. All right, you should be good. Okay.
Okay, I didn't want to interrupt later having to do this.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. Thanks for reminding me. S-Mill, Hell and Damnation. What was the topic again? Just that. Nailed it. Nailed it. So, the approach I took while we wait for anybody who's lollygagging is kind of a timeline. As best I could, and with obviously very little space because, you know, we're doing the slideshow model most of the time. But I tried to start in the earliest point, in history, indiscriminate of religion and culture. So there's going to be a bunch of different kinds. But at the very beginning of history, at the concept of hell, all the way up until today, what the concept of hell is. That's the approach. And then I figure, you know, we'll see. Because y'all usually... Sidetrack isn't the right word because that's not true. You add much needed context that ends up having us unpack things further, which is very, very good. Ruth. Mikkel, good evening, a fellow hell dweller theist. You should do marketing because you're very good at it. Beginning of time until this afternoon. Until now, even. If this is hell. So somebody said, oh, it's somebody, never mind. Never mind. What is hell? The Heretic's Guide to Christianity. Because that's kind of what we do here. Hey, Ghost. No, sidetrack is good. Don't say that. Sidetrack is pretty much always good. I don't think we've ever had a sidetrack where I'm like, man, I wish that didn't happen. I don't think that's ever happened. So feel free. Early concepts of the afterlife from prehistoric to ancient civilizations, and then up until now too. So the very beginning, as far as I could tell, at least anything, there is some kind of similar concepts, I guess you could say, but I try to keep it as close to like what is relevant to us, what is relevant to your Christian or your Christian adjacent person, our kind of version of hell. So just keep that in mind. So don't be mad if you don't see something that you're aware of. But I try to keep it kind of in our zone of reality and what is immediately applicable to us. That being said, the Sumerians and the Mesopotamians. So the earliest recorded ideas of an afterlife. And I say that loosely because this is very different. but it's the first recorded idea of some kind of afterlife, much like a lot, honestly, that we get from the Bible comes from Mesopotamian cultures, where the dead went to the underworld known as Kur, or Irkala. This was a shadowy, dreary realm ruled by the goddess Ereshkigal. I don't know. You guys know I'm not gonna pronounce things properly. It's not gonna happen. But those words should sound familiar because we talked about it last week. The way that this is described for the Mesopotamians is awfully similar much of the time as Sheol, and then in some cases kind of like purgatory, but it's because some of their attributes in a sense are similar. The dead live there in a ghostly experience or existence, neither suffering eternal torment nor experiencing reward, just a bleak continuation of life. When you dive into it a little bit deeper, just like everything else, it seems that you can find different roads that explain it a little bit different. So from what I've seen, it's not all just a continuation of a bleak and dreary life. Some of them had a little bit of flavor to them. It wasn't just this bleak nothingness. But at the very least, it should add a little bit of context to what we understand the Hebrew culture believed of Sheol, because the description is similar. The function might have been a bit different. The explanation and the context or content that's been added to it might be a little bit different, but pretty similar stuff. Follow your seven-headed Naga's advice, Ghost. About what? Pazuzu. I wander off a lot. I wouldn't consider it sidetracking. Is it sidetracking?
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
Mikkel shared a video earlier, and that was a reference to it, the seven-headed thing. You should check it out.
Okay. Where was it?
I want to say it was in Theology, but I can't remember.
Okay. All right. I'll definitely find it when we're done. And then you just reminded me, though, too, is we had some stuff in here. So I'll remember to pull this up when we're done. We'll have to check the videos to see how long they are. But Mikkel had some stuff in here. Layman had some stuff in here. And then you had some stuff in here.
Yeah, the stuff I put in there, I mean, people can look at it on their own time because it's a rabbit hole of gibberish.
Okay. Well, if there's anything you want to pull up, just let me know.
Okay.
Oh, the core.
Depends on how much time we have.
Okay. Yeah, well, let's just see. 8
Yeah,
dust.
that core comment was due to Kur.
Oh, okay.
The underworld known as Kur.
Yeah.
All right, I'll shut up.
No. Yeah, your whole core thing. That's another thing that just flies right over my head. Like I get it. I've just never really spent time thinking about it.
I'm trying to get you, man.
I know, and eventually will, because
Just look at it.
It's happening. Yeah, it's slowly happening. S. Mill said your surviving family was supposed to give you beer and food through a pipe that went down to your grave under the floor where they buried you. What? In the core? Let me see what is this video that Mikkel posted. Is something we should play, or can we play it?
It's like 20 minutes.
Oh man. Okay. All right. Well, I'll watch it. In Mesopotamia, what exactly are you referring to? Because I'm not familiar.
The identity of the serpent. I don't know. Did you post another one? I've been busy today.
Who? Or where?
Mikkel, are you referring to the one that was about the serpent or a different video?
Well, now it's S-Mill. I'm not sure. He said so your surviving family was supposed to give you beer and food through a pipe that went down to your grave under the floor where they buried you. And then he said in Mesopotamia. I'm not familiar with
That's
this.
hilarious.
I'm not on that track, S-Mill. You'll have to share.
Wouldn't it start to smell? That's funny.
I would think. All right, so Sumerians, Mesopotamians, and then moving into Egypt, which is, 2500 BC. The first two, I guess I should say. We're talking like 3000 to 2000 BC. Now, 2500-ish, and then moving forward. The ancient Egyptians, and I feel like somebody mentioned this last week a little bit, but the ancient Egyptians envisioned an underworld called Duat, where souls were judged by Osiris. Those who failed the test of the weighing of the heart were devoured by the demon Amit and ceased to exist, which was considered the worst fate. However, this wasn't quite hell in the sense of an eternal punishment, but more of a moral reckoning. And the same thing for this, from everything I've seen, is that there are twists and turns and different flavors of this as well when you actually look into some of the literature, because nothing is black and white when it comes to theology and theology adjacent things. Greek Hades and Tartarus, 1200, and then onward. The Greeks believed in Hades, a general underworld for all the dead. Within Hades, there was Tartarus, a deep abyss where the wicked suffered eternal punishment. The Titans, Sisyphus, and Tantalus. This is one of the first real hell-like places in Western tradition. And if you look, and we'll go through some of the Renaissance stuff too, but this is, as far as I know, where the concept of hell that became what it is truly seems to have originated. It seems as though across cultures, hell in the beginning, in the very early days, was more of a nothingness, a bland, shadowy is the word that gets used a lot, just nothingness. You cease to exist, or your existence continues, but in what you would describe as nothing. You just continue, but there's nothing there. And then it seems as though,
Joe, before you dig into it, could you remove the poll? It's like in the way of the chat.
Yes, I absolutely can. Done. So as soon as that loads, thank you. So it seems as though this is when we start to get what becomes hell, the actual way that it's depicted. And I think it reflects extremely clearly in terms of Christianity and then everything that then became adjacent to Christianity. It is what stuck. And then during the Renaissance, which we'll talk about, that's when it really, really, really took off. But this was the planting of the seeds that became what everybody envisions when they look at hell. David said, that's not a rabbit hole, that's a grave hole. Oh my God. Okay, so Hebrew Sheol and early Jewish thought. 1000 to basic loosely 200 BC. The shadowy, grave-like existence beyond the death. We just have been talking about this for the past couple weeks in scattershot, basically. But by the time the Second Temple period, 500 to 70 AD, Jewish thought began to incorporate ideas of divine judgment and then the afterlife as well, specifically in terms of punishment, influenced by Persian and Greek ideas, because that was the seed, it seems, specifically the Greek. They planted the seeds that everything kind of stemmed from. The concept of Gehenna emerged, a fiery place of purification or destruction for the wicked. And it should be blaringly obvious because we've gone through, sorry, my brain just blew up. Purgatory, and then hell. And we did it for a reason, obviously, because they're not interchangeable, but they're undoubtedly linked. And so you see, as the concept of hell begins to develop, it seems as though the concept of purgatory kind of fell in line with it along the timeline, and it just kind of split in function. But then they get caught because oftentimes they'll describe each other as almost the same. This was likely inspired by the Valley of Hinnom, which was a real place that was outside of Jerusalem and was heavily associated with idol sacrifice. So it had a lot of woo-woo, pagan in an umbrella term sense vibes to it because that type of stuff was happening there. And then after all of this, we get the actual development of hell. So Christian and Islamic, whether you like it or not, development. The 1st century AD, and then obviously up until now, but it's definitely changed over time. So in the 1st century, Christianity took what the Jews had kind of laid out, what the Greco-Roman culture had laid out, and then they built upon it, like they did with virtually everything. And they began to portray hell as this divine punishment for those who went against God. Jesus referred to Gehenna as a place of fire in Matthew 10 and Mark 9, they're mirror verses. And then later theologians like Augustine, who came up last week, emphasized hell as eternal separation from God. What happened here is the same thing that happened with purgatory, where in the first couple centuries, you got the rhetoric war going on. You've got Christianity trying to develop and take root with different theological, what are denominations effectively, but nobody saw it like that. They saw it as either you were us or you were a heretic. Whereas today, denominations are relatively accepted. And for the most part, people call each other Christians still, which is kind of interesting. But either way, you had Augustine, you had Tertullian, you had Origen, you had all the big names that came later who developed based off of old Jewish thought. So same for what was for purgatory is the same for hell. Islam in the 7th century, roughly, and then obviously still onward, Islam describes Jahannam as a fiery place of punishment for sinners with various levels of suffering based on one's deeds, influenced by Jewish and Christian teachings. Also, obviously influenced by Greek teaching, because if you trace it back in the timeline, it all kind of started with the Greeks, at least the way we see it, for the most part, started from the Greeks. And then where the actual boom happened was the medieval portion of history, for the most part. So the medieval, the 5th to roughly the 15th century, this period saw the most vivid depictions of hell. So this is when the art really came about. This is when we got an image to something that just was. And it became something more tangible in the eyes of the person. And everybody should kind of understand that because of Dante's Inferno. If Dante's Inferno is not something you've gone through, even just a little bit, watch a synopsis on YouTube of somebody talking about it. Having like a very low level understanding of Dante's Inferno, I think is important to kind of understand why hell became what hell became. This categorized hell into the circles, which everybody knows, but a lot of people don't know where it came from. And it came from Dante's Inferno. You had the 9 circles or the 9 rings or the 9 levels of hell, depending on how the person chooses to express it. But each one would punish sinners different according to the crime or the sin that they had commit. The dome. Oh, Ghost said, I see purgatory as spiritual hell and the core of the planet as physical hell. 2 sides of an interconnected system. That's interesting. Purgatory is the spiritual hell and the core of the planet as physical hell. Are you here? I want you to explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so purgatory is a spiritual hell.
I said the spiritual hell because, like, I think it's like we're refining our thoughts and ideas and beliefs, etc. We're purging out the bad ideas and trying to retain the good ones and trying to learn the difference between the two.
Okay.
And the physical hell, the core, is what generates the field which allows us to even be alive. So it's all a system, and I think it's been really misinterpreted and misunderstood throughout the millennium.
So wait,
Or the millennia.
Purgatory is here, right? You think purgatory is here and now?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay.
I mean, who knows, but that's what I think.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I just wanted to make sure. Okay. And then so then I guess that begs the question, then what happens?
We couldn't be having this conversation without the core. We would be like Mars. We would be burnt up and desolate. So that just allows us to be talking and having experience.
I'm with you on that. Okay. So then in terms of like, say a cookie cutter Christian is listening to this later and they're like, what the hell? What is he even talking about? What is happening here? So what is kind of your view then on what happens to the non-Christians when they die? Because we're like redefining hell right now, which I think is fine. And I don't necessarily disagree, but then we have to help people envision from that perspective. Like what happens to sinners when they die? Do you have an opinion on it? Or do you think it's just an interpretation thing? Or
yeah, we all go to a hard drive, which I think is the crystalline iron lattice that is the core. We're
Okay.
stored somewhere, regardless of whether it could be on the moon. I don't care where it is, but we're stored somewhere.
And
There
that's
has to be a mechanism.
the soul, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Okay.
the soul.
Okay. So the soul, while here is in hell, and this is, called purgatory, is earth, it's life, it's this reality that we're experiencing right now. And then when you die, does only the sinner go to physical hell in the core, or does everybody get downloaded to that hard drive?
We all go. We're all connected to it. We're tethered to it.
So
And
everybody
it's not
goes
an
to
evil
hell.
thing. Yeah, it's just part of
Okay.
the mechanism of how things work, in my opinion. But it's not evil. We all go to the same place, and then there are partitions, which you read about in Enoch.
Okay. So hell is like the sorting room in a sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And then,
So our
go
our
ahead.
shape is developed while we live, and then depending on our shape will depend on where we get sorted to upon death. Shape meaning
Okay.
frequency or some type of determining factor that differentiates person A from person B.
Interesting. Okay. This is ringing a bell. We've talked about this before. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that's all for now. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. That's all for now. I'm sure we'll come back. I don't disagree. As I would never look at it like that without prompting by you, but I have a similar belief on the function, I guess. Interesting.
Yeah, it
There.
can be a lot, you know,
Oh, yeah, it's totally
if
a lot.
people aren't used to it.
No, but it does add up. No, it's fair for sure. All right. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. To Esmil, are you okay, bro? What is going on? You're on one tonight. All right, so that was medieval. Then the Protestant Reformation. There should be some eerily similar vibes to the timeline from when comparing this to what we talked about last week. The Protestant Reformation led to obviously pretty different interpretations of what hell was, with a part of them being all about the annihilation, the total destruction, the tulip people, rather than eternal torment. And I guess to break that down is, for anybody who doesn't know, annihilation is, most believe on like the Calvinist side, is nothingness. Total annihilation is something that a lot of Calvinists believe, and they believe that at that point, if you are wicked, you become literally nothing. You are annihilated. Nothing survives, which I know Ghost would definitely disagree with, just from the explanation you just gave. I would totally disagree with too, because I think logically it makes no sense for you to just cease to exist in every possible sense of the term. And then the other end of the Calvinists, and obviously there's sprinkles in between, but they believe in a rather traditional version of hell, where it's eternal, literal torment in some fashion, just forever. And that's your existence. Your existence continues on, but it's torment forever. Mikhail said both Dante's Divine Comedy and Milton's Paradise Lost, I have not read that, are such literary blessings. Satan is greatly appreciating of these two fellas. I haven't read Milton's. I've read enough Dante's. I have not read Milton's. Is it worth it, Mikhail? Is it worth it? Esmil said Dante's Inferno, the gates of hell have written on them, abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Yeah, that wasn't the one. The one I was asking about was the Harry Potter. Do you go to Gryffindor or Slytherin? Or are you saying that in reference to Dante's circles? Because then it would make sense. Then I'm with you. Modern day. Difficult to talk about, honestly, because hell has become something odd, in my opinion. But in a general sense, I suppose, in modern times, belief about hell has become extremely diverse, with a bunch of Christians rejecting the idea of eternal torment in favor of what is either annihilationism or universalism. But it's tough, to be honest. I worked in a few different churches, but I worked with tons of different churches. And just the diversity among my anecdotal experience in vocational ministry is unfathomable. There is no cohesive belief about hell, in my opinion, whatsoever, at all. Because you have, on one end, you have total annihilationists who believe, again, it just becomes nothing. All of everything ceases to exist. And then you have the opposite end of the spectrum, where universalism basically, and they hate when I say this, but it's essentially true. They believe everybody moves on to, what you'd picture as heaven. You move on to the positive thing, with in mind that the Christian belief of hell is, if you are a bad boy, you go to hell to be tormented. And if you are a good boy, you go to heaven to be happy. On that spectrum, Christian belief is everywhere. So classical or eternal conscience torment, people believe it either literally or metaphorically. So you have that spectrum. Purgatorial, the second chance view, Catholics, we talked about last week, and that concept of having a second chance. And even that, there's a spectrum. There's people who believe that you only move from purgatory if enough people pray for you here on earth. There's people who believe you only move on from purgatory if you do something in purgatory, like you do it. Was that Ninja TV show where you have to like complete things? You got to do something like that to get through purgatory and then to move on to heaven. So even that, the purgatorial view is complex and a spectrum. Universalism, all evil is overcome, period, for the most part, where evil doesn't exist beyond this reality. And once you move on from this reality, you just are good. Everybody's good. And the Pope, I don't remember if it's this Pope or the last Pope, but a recent Pope has said some pretty Christian universalist things that have really kind of upset people, talking about how all religions lead to the same God. And I'm not saying I disagree with that, but the classical Christian view is that that is not true. And if you are not a devout Christian, even though who the hell knows what a Christian is anymore, then you are going to hell. The Pope has said some pretty universalist things. And then you have annihilation. Destroy all evil. The spectrum being, does that happen immediately, or is there some purgatorial sense and then total annihilation? And everything in between. The moral of the story is, though, I don't think anybody has any idea at all what Christians believe about hell anymore, because I don't think Christians believe anything about hell. I think everybody's just kind of making up their own thing or turning to what is comfortable. And I think probably for the most part, people just aren't talking about it. I don't remember the last time hell is brought up, like in church. And I still listen to things. But even when I was working in church, hell was not talked about virtually ever. It was not a common thing. You might have some backroom conversations about it, but they were not being preached about. Ghost said they were going to make a movie of Paradise Lost where Bradley Cooper was set to play Lucifer. It got canceled. Interesting. That would have been good. David said, I believe hell is similar to the Catholic purgatory, but it's a place of refining fire where lost souls become righteous and acceptable to God. So, David, what do you think purgatory is then? Or do you? Or do you think purgatory is just hell? They're interchangeable. Or two ways to try to express the same thing. The concept, for the movie. I think purgatorial, universalism, and annihilation are all compatible with each other, but classical, nah. Okay. Purgatorial, universalism, and annihilation. I guess, yeah. They could all work.
Yeah, I think the purgatorial would be now, and the universalism and annihilation happens after death. That would be like in the millennium kind of deal. You go over here, you go over there, depending on your soul.
And that, you'd be looking at that from the perspective, like that's annihilationism in that context?
Yeah, I would call it recyclism. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, no, I that makes sense, yeah.
Because they are being annihilated, but it's also like you can't destroy it, really. So you transform it.
So in your theory, the people who go to the bad boy hard drive, what happens to them? Or do you have a theory about that? Like what
Yeah,
is
they get turned into ash, and it's used as fertilizer for the next cycle.
actually?
Well, not real ash, but it's likened unto ash.
No, right.
It's something to where, yeah, so that's why they use fire.
Okay. So you think they're recycled Literally.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think whatever the energy that makes us us is, I think, good, but it's being filtered through several different layers of mechanism, and those mechanisms can taint it. So when that person dies, that energy is just neutral. It goes back, and then that person, the only way that person survives is in memory. So you can
Hmm.
look back at the people who are recycled and use that as a motivator to not do that because they're remembered. Like, this is why you shouldn't do this,
Right.
whatever
Right.
it was they did.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Man, that stuff makes me think. It's a
Yeah, it makes
lot.
me think too.
It's a lot. Very interesting. It's an uncomfortable subject. Hell. I guess. I guess if you have the perspective of like a classic Christian, I suppose, because you're kind of saying that a large portion, I mean, now I guess the majority of the US at least would be going to whatever this place is. And if you're coming from the perspective of it's eternal torment, here's a challenge I have for you. Try to steelman the classic Christian interpretation of hell using the canon alone. Try. I don't think you can. It's something I have tried a number of times. Hell is similar to purgatory. There's certainly more than purgatory because purgatory has literally nothing about it and just a few verses you can gymnastics your way into. But the canon has some text that paints some kind of picture. But if you have the mental ability to approach that task, that challenge, without the preconceived notions of hell that you have, going in blank and just saying, I am a biblical scholar who got amnesia and I need to learn what hell is. And I'm going to use nothing but the biblical canon. I think if you do that, I think you'd be very surprised at how little you can come up with that would point you in the direction of what a classic Christian believes about it. I think you'd believe in something, but I do not think it would be this place of torment and what is described from the Greco-Roman world on, really. It's interesting. If you find some time and want to do a Bible study trying to steelman the concept of hell. Mikhail said, Christians are 100% certain they are not going to hell. I drink to that confidence and certainty. They are, though. The funny thing is everybody is, though. Every religion who has a concept of hell is 100% convinced they are not the ones going there. It blows my mind. And that applies to everything. And I complain about it a lot, so I'm not going to complain about it now. Energy patterns that made us, Mikhail said. I like that terminology. The energy patterns. What is that? Yggdrasil? No, oh, Norse.
Really pronounced Yggdrasil.
Yggdrasil?
Mm-hmm.
What do they
tree.
believe? Do you know about the recycle process?
Yeah, I mean, it just mirrors how real trees are um, made in their cycles of, dropping acorns and recycling, etc. Some of the stuff I added was, Norse stuff. So
Oh, okay.
if there's time later.
So Helim, the realm of the dead. Am I saying that right? Helim?
Hell, Hel.
Yeah, HELHEIM. The realm.
I'm not familiar with that.
Says the realm of the dead. So in Norse mythology, the concept of the afterlife is complex and doesn't follow the strict heaven and hell dichotomy found in Christianity. However, Yggdrasil, I don't know if I'm saying that right. The great world tree that connects the 9 realms does include a realm often associated with hell, and their spelling is HELHEIM. Helim is one of the 9 worlds connected by Yggdrasil. It is ruled by Hel, Hel, the daughter of Right. Okay. Ruled by Hel, the daughter of Loki. This realm is where those who die of old age, sickness, or other inglorious means, as opposed to dying in battle, go after death. Unlike the fiery concept of hell in Christianity, Helim or Helim is depicted as cold, misty, and shrouded in darkness. It is not necessarily a place of punishment, but rather a final resting place for the dead. Interesting. And then Nif. Oh, good God. NIF.
Niflheim.
Yeah, bro. Well, that's different too, though. Here, I'll put it in
Oh,
the
I can
YouTube.
see it.
Let me see. Here. Yeah, here we go. Let me try to make it bigger. I just pulled up Chat GPT. So Niflhel, Niflil, the mist hell. Some sources mention Niflil, I don't know, bro. A deeper and darker region within Helim. It is sometimes depicted as a...
Heim just means like place or city.
What?
Whenever you see Heim,
Heim?
I believe. I could be wrong about that. Yeah, like Niflheim.
Oh, okay.
I think it means place, but I could be wrong about that.
Okay. Okay. Well, I guess that would make sense. It's sometimes depicted as a place where oathbreakers, murderers, and other wicked souls suffer. Niflheim may have been an influence on later Christianized concepts of a torturous hell. How do you say it? Yggdrasil?
Just replace the Y with an I.
Yggdrasil. Okay. Connects Helim to the rest of existence. The roots of Yggdrasil extend into Helim, emphasizing that death is a fundamental part of the cosmos. The dragon, I'm not even going to try to say that one, gnaws at these roots and is said to torment the souls of the dishonorable dead. Contrast with Christian hell. Here we go. Norse mythology lacks the idea of eternal damnation based on moral failure. While some souls may suffer, Helim is more of a neutral afterlife than a place of divine wrath. The most feared fate for a Viking was not hellish torment, but being forgotten and denied entry into Valhalla, the warrior's paradise. Very interesting. I don't know a lot about Norse mythology.
Valhalla would be the equivalent to Elysian Fields in Greek mythology.
Okay.
Or Abraham's bosom in Hebrew.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. I gotta look into that. In churches, hell is not talked about because it's uncomfortable. Oh, did we already read that? Yeah. Patterns are created through experience. I added some interesting Norse references for later. Okay. Yeah, I want to look at all that. If we don't have time here, I definitely want to look at it myself. Ruth, but hell is most definitely not taboo in Pentecostal churches still. That's true. That's true. But try to get them to explain to you what hell is. And everything, the cookie crumbles, my friend. David said, my ideas on hell explains why the God of the Old Testament appears cruel. He was not cruel. He just knew he would eventually save everyone he killed. David, can you explain that more? I'm very curious, but I don't think I fully get what you're saying. Why God of the Old Testament appears cruel. He was not cruel. He just knew he would eventually save everyone he killed. Can you, if you can, I would love for you to explain that a little bit more.
I think I see what he's saying. I mean, is it cruel to pull up roots in your garden? If you're just going to, burn them or put them in your compost to recycle for another purpose? I mean, what is cruel?
Yeah, I guess perspective is what matters. From our perspective, that would be cruel. Because we have a soul. Like here's the tricky thing I have with stuff like that is that if God made us to be who we are and to be able to understand things the way we can, like you could make an argument maybe weeds have some kind of conscience. I think it would be a stretch, but we have a conscience and we understand things and we have these theologies and these perspectives and we look at the world a certain way. I don't think it's a fair comparison. But I know it gets used, not the weed thing, but like that type of explanation gets used often. I just don't think it's the same thing. I think we have an awareness that something like that does not have. And I think it makes it, maybe that's still true.
Well, I don't even think the awareness matters. I think the identity matters. Weeds have an identity, and so do desirable plants. And we desire those plants over the weeds because of their identities and their attributes and what they do. So, of course, God is not going to desire to have weeds or people who choke out innocence and choke out the good to be in his garden. You have to do something with them.
So you just mean the negative ones, the
Yeah.
negative identities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is what weeds are. Like,
Right.
they're undesirable because of what they do.
Right. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
That's the way I see it. I don't know what David meant, but I kind of assume that's what he meant.
No,
Maybe you can correct me.
I think you're probably spot on. David, if you can explain more, that'd be great. But that makes sense, I think. One of the questions that always gets me, man, is like is non-human animal suffering. This is, for whatever reason, this is being brought up a lot in like the social circles of the internet that I'm in. But the idea of non-human animal suffering as a topic for apologetics, I have a very hard time with that. I don't know why, but that I shouldn't say weeds example just made me think of that in terms of trying to reason through.
I think anyone who is indifferent or celebratory towards animal suffering are weeds. I think the people, even if they've never, done anything to harm an animal in their life, if the idea to them doesn't make them recoil, then something's wrong with them, I think. Because I eat meat, but I also hate the concept of animal suffering, and I don't like factory farms and all that stuff. And I see some people that kind of celebrate it and are very indifferent and kind of
True.
Yeah. I think those people are weeds because people like that don't have a place in the garden of God or the kingdom of God.
What do you think about then? Same topic, different perspective. What do you think about the like? How would you justify the reality that animals suffering is basically their entire life? Like the whole wild, everything in the wild is essentially animals just trying to not die. And when they do die, oftentimes it's a relatively brutal death. Like they're being torn apart in some senses. Even insects like literally tear each other apart limb by limb. What is the function of that? Like that was the conversation I was, and this is totally sidetracked, but we have plenty of time. The context of the conversation I was listening to was somebody trying to make sense of why God would create the function that is here that causes animal suffering. Like, why does that have to be the function? Why couldn't all animals have just, none of them eat meat? All of them just eat leafy greens and whatnot. Why does animal suffering, why is it the whole thing? It's their whole life.
I think nature is a constant reminder to let us know where we are. We're not in Eden. We are in, you could call it purgatory, hell, whatever. It's just to remind us that this isn't there. This isn't the place that's desirable, the place there that we want to be. Because what does it say? It says the wolf will lie down with the lamb. Well, why? Because something changes to where, we don't need to eat anymore, or there's some difference. We don't know exactly what that means, but something will change. It's a contrast.
And so animals they are sacrificial in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, they're messengers in a sense because each animal has attributes that we use in metaphors to learn things.
True.
So
yeah,
it's multi-layered and multi-purposed.
Good answer. I think it's a tough question. I think when you deeply get into the theology of it, I think you can have answers. Like that was a good answer in my opinion. But I think when having like a conversation with a normal person, I think it's a very hard topic to deal with. S. Mill, is here.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say, if you see animals as being like souls like humans, then you can see what they're going through.
Uh-oh, we lost you. I think you muted on accident. All right, I'm going to read some if we can get you back. There you go. There you go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So if animals are like we are, they have souls and spirits, and they're going through the same garbage we are. They are this is like a gymnasium. Earth is like a gymnasium or boot camp
I
that we
think
have to graduate from to
so.
get.
Hold on. You
to-
keep cutting out. So you said the Earth is like a gymnasium or a boot camp that we have to go through. You're kind of cutting in and out. But let's try again.
Yeah, it's like a gymnasium or a boot camp that we have to go through to get to the next level.
Man, we keep losing you.
Get to heaven.
Try Esmil. Try to leave and come back. I'm getting like 5 words, and then you completely cut out. The audio cuts out completely.
Leave and
Yeah, try. Yeah, there we go. Let's see if that works. Ruth, put fresh cilantro on your omelets. Trust me, 100% you'll love it. Kat, are you listening? Do that. All right, Esmil, you should be able to accept that. Okay, let's try again. Hopefully it works.
yeah, so I said that Earth is like a gymnasium or a camp.
We lost you again.
That's it.
It's like a gymnasium or boot camp. You didn't say anything after that?
No.
Okay.
Well, okay, so life is like a gymnasium or a boot camp, and you just have to like graduate from it to get to the next level, which is heaven, and that's about it.
Okay. I agree with that. It's virtually exactly how I see it. Yeah. And I think
So,
go ahead.
So animals are going through the same thing we're going through.
So then I'm glad you brought that up. So then what track do they then follow? And do animals have conscience like we do? Or conscience at all? Are they conscious at all?
I'm going to say so. I'm going to say so.
Okay.
I think it's diminished, but I think so.
I agree. Yeah. So you think everything living on the planet is going through some kind of refinement or training or whatever, and then we all, on our own individual levels, humans being the most conscious all the way down to insects, will all move on, but to different places, to the same place? Is it a place?
Well, I believe in reincarnation, so I think we keep elevating until we make it back to the source.
What's the source? Is that God or something adjacent to God?
God.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. I agree with most of it, for sure. I'm right there. It's an interesting question.
How do I get rid of this echo?
I don't. So we can probably. Oh, you're hearing me on an echo. You probably have YouTube open too. Is that it? That would probably do it.
You have headphones in, Esmil?
I got it now.
Okay. You said if you're an animist, then you see You see them dealing with stuff to enhance their soul like us. Okay, yeah, you explain that. It's interesting. David. Oh, man. Okay, animals have souls, Ghost said, but they don't have the same purpose. Technically, anything that's animated has a soul. Does anything with a conscience... does anything with consciousness have a soul? Ghost?
I think consciousness is filtered through souls. So anything that has a soul will have a sort of consciousness in it. But because
Okay.
I think God is consciousness, and then it reduces down through layers. So yeah, animals would have souls, but I don't think that they are being tested like we are being tested. They're here, I think, to teach us. They're like tools that angels use. Man, this is going to get real woo woo, but they're here for us to test us on how we utilize them, treat them, etc. How we use their attributes as metaphors to teach things. Like they're here for us, but we have to respect that and understand that and not abuse that.
So they're a part of the refining process.
Yeah, I think so. They're a part of
Okay.
nature, and nature is here to refine us. It's an extremely complicated system, but they're part of that system, I think.
So then their soul, does it just go to a different sub drive to get
That
recycled?
I don't even know. Like
Okay.
I I don't think so, but
So
I would
then
hope so, I guess.
what do you think then happens to them? To the soul?
Well, what is them? Like the unique personality? Um
The
hmm.
animation, right? So like if I'm following correctly, which I agree with this, but I would never describe it like that, but I think it's the same thing where God is consciousness, and that the image of is what we are or what we reflect or whatever. And if that is animation and animals are animated, then they have a soul. So then once the soul, the human body or the animal body dies, the soul then goes somewhere, right?
Well, yeah, I only think souls get stored that are being tested. I don't think animals are being tested. I mean, sure, I could be
Ah,
wrong, but I just don't see it.
okay. Okay. But then don't you still have to account for what happens to that soul? Or does it just get recycled in this system?
Yeah, I think all animals get recycled, but you're getting into like some super deep metaphysics of
Yeah,
what is being recycled, their memories, or what's going on actually. Like,
right.
I'm not sure. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about the animal question, but maybe I should.
Yeah, I mean it's something else to throw in the list. Okay. Oh, they're talking about
But as
food.
it stands, I just see them as a test for us.
That makes sense. It's interesting to hear Esmil explain his version and then hear you explain yours. They're it's just interesting. That's why I love this stuff. It's very interesting.
It's a spectrum. You got some people that torture animals all the way up to people who love and cherish and worship their animals. So
Oh
they're
yeah.
just a reflection of us. Like if you abuse a dog, it's going to be a different soul than if you cherish a dog.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. Yeah. Without a doubt. Okay, let me see where we're at. I think we're close to done here, though, and now we are running out of time. So, modern day, we've already kind of talked about, but the concept of hell has evolved from the shadowy afterlife, Mesopotamia, and Jewish Sheol, to a place of fiery judgment, Gehenna Tartarus, and later to a structured place of eternal punishment, Christian, Islamic, and then the medieval tradition, and it continues to do its thing now. Alternative Christian views of hell, because we keep talking about this stuff. So I figured I'd put it in. Gnosticism, which flourished for the most part, this is arguable, but heavily between the 2nd and 4th century. I believe much earlier than that, though. Taught that the entire material world was a form of hell or imprisonment. So kind of similar to what some people here believe, in a sense, at the very least. They believe that a false god, often called the demiurge, identified with the Old Testament Yahweh by some Gnostic sects, we talked about that when we talked about Gnosticism, created the physical world as a place of suffering, deception, and entrapment. And we talked about that, the whole Sophia story and everything. For Gnostics, the true God was a purely spiritual being, and human souls originally belonged to this divine realm, but became trapped in the material world by the demiurge. Life itself, full of suffering, ignorance, and illusion, was seen as a type of hell. Ignorance as the real hell. This is a different view. Rather than envisioning hell as a fiery underworld, Gnostics, some of them, believed that the greatest punishment was spiritual ignorance, which makes sense if you think about what they're called. Not knowing one's divine origin, and some will express it as not knowing one's divine purpose. Those who lived according to material desires and remained unaware of their divine spark, goes back to the Sophia story, a piece of God within them, these people were effectively in hell already, which is here. We are in hell currently. True salvation, or gnosis, came from awakening to the reality that one's spirit was meant to return to the divine realm, escaping the cycle of material existence. The afterlife and concepts of torment and wickedness as it relates to our, or some people's, Christian perspective. Some Gnostic texts suggested that when a soul dies, it must pass through a series of heavenly realms, or archons, ruled by malevolent beings who try to keep it trapped. We talked a little bit about that on the Gnostic episode 2. If the soul has attained spiritual knowledge or gnosis, it can ascend past these realms and reunite with the true God, often described as or named the monad. If the soul remains ignorant, it may be reincarnated into another body, continuing to suffer in the material world, a cycle akin to punishment. And as usual, some of this clicks with what S. Mill was talking about. I won't speak for him, but some of it, in my opinion, is kind of in line with bits and pieces at the very least of that. And then even some of Ghosts. And some of mine, for sure, are in alignment with this. And then variability. So some Gnostic sects, like the Valentinians, had a more hopeful view, so a more positive view, believing that most souls could eventually be redeemed. Others, like the Sethians, saw the world as utterly corrupt and believed only a small group of enlightened individuals would escape. What does that sound like? It sounds kind of like Calvinists. A little bit. Some texts, like the Apocalypse of Peter, which is a Gnostic text that we're definitely going to read soon, mentions a more traditional hell where wicked souls suffer, but these descriptions seem more symbolic than literal, which isn't too dissimilar from what we have in our Christian canon. This is what the Hermeticists believe as well. Ignorance is the worst state of a soul. Okay. Esmil also said Manu sacrifices Yimo, and with the help of heavenly deities, forges humans and the natural elements from Yimo's remains. In the same way, our bodies are recycled for new life. Okay, that's interesting. David. Oh, not David. Geoffrey. It's hell to fallen angels, not humans. We were created from here for here. Wait, what? It's hell. So Earth, I assume, is hell to fallen angels, not humans. Not humans. We were created from here for here. That's interesting, because I don't even feel that aligns with like the normal Christian view. The ontology of we is what's in question. Welcome to the stream. Agreed. Mikkel said, fellas, would you agree in that consciousness needs to be channeled only through all matter biological to produce intelligence, and does intelligence equal a soul? I guess in a sense I would, yeah. I think it'd have to be a long conversation, But I think in a sense, yeah, I do. I don't know about the other guys though.
I think the soul is the CPU. So like without it, you're not doing anything. There is no you without it, but because that is you. It's what creates the shape. I think it's the brain. So like that particular pattern is you. It's your identity. And without a brain, you don't exist. There has to be a brain somewhere. I also think the planet is a brain. It's a collective brain. So there has to be a core that an identity can be on. Otherwise, there is no identity, in my opinion.
Right. Right. No, I agree. I don't know how else it would I don't know how else it would make sense. Or I don't see how you get the function otherwise.
Yeah. I think we've mythologized the word soul to the degree that we don't even realize we got one in our skull right now.
Totally agree with that. Yeah. We've without a doubt done that. Manu and Yimo were the original divine twins of Indo-European religion. Interesting. I am not familiar at all. Is it worth spending time on? That's the question. If it's worth it, I'll go into it. All right, let me see if there was anything we wanted to go over from the Discord section. So before, I don't know how long these are. Let's see. These are too long. So if you're interested, Layman dropped First Peter audio Bible, an engaging narrative. I assume it's got commentary, I would think. It dropped that twice. Maybe they're different. I'm not sure. They look, I don't know. But they're there if you're interested. He said, these play a huge role in my view of what hell is, further illustrated with the imagery in Revelation, especially chapter 16, 20, and 21. So they must be with commentary, I would assume, as well as illustration. So I'm definitely going to watch that because I'm curious, especially chapters 16, 20, and 21 out of 2 Peter. Okay, and then Mikkel said, what about this? What is this? Oh, man, this is long, too. So 30 minutes. What is this? 99% of Christians get this wrong. And it looks like, Mikkel, what is this? Well, God, they did clickbait real well. I would like to know what 99% of Christians got wrong. I will watch this later. It looks like 30 minutes long, and if Mikkel put it out there, it's probably worth it. So I'll watch that later too.
I haven't checked that one out yet.
They
Looks
won.
interesting.
Yeah, they won at the clickbait game. They did a damn good job. Layman said, dude, hell as a world of your own creation makes so much sense. That's why I think reincarnation is legit. Why I think this world is a place of flames, according to 1 Peter, that will end in flames, according to 2 Peter. Coincidentally, like death and Hades in Revelation 20 and 21. And the people who remain here by that time will be the type of people in Revelation 16 who hate God and love the world they created and repeatedly choose in spite of how it destroys them. This place ends in flames. Then there is a new heaven and earth for the purified.
I like that.
I do too. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Like some of the stuff I get into is why it will be burned and how it will be burned. But I like that he said that.
Yeah, I mean that is kind of I don't know. I go back and forth, I guess. I feel that's very significant sometimes, and then other times I think it could not possibly be more insignificant. I waver on how significant this here is. I have a hard time with that. He also said, this is all happening here on earth, I believe, as a result of purging the earth of all godliness in Revelation 14 and committing to a fully godless system. It will fail. I wish he was here. I'd like to ask him some questions.
Me too.
Yeah, it was very well put together. All right, Ghost, is any of this stuff
I mean,
worth?
it's a rabbit hole.
Do you pick? I mean, pick I got to go in a few minutes, but if there were a few.
Do the first set, the first batch, and then if people want to get into the Norse stuff, that would be the second batch.
Okay, so the mustard seed and the leaven. He put another parable before them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed that a man took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of all seeds, but when it has grown, it is larger than all the garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches. Go.
Right. So the tree would be the field, and the birds of the air are spirits, because birds are metaphors for spirits in scripture, in my opinion. So if you kind of lay that on top of some of the images that I've shared, this is kind of designed, like I'm just dropping pictures so people can study them at their own leisure. If you just keep going over them over and over, you'll start to see a pattern. At least that's what I hope.
Okay, well, so here, explain the snake and then the magnet and energy, I assume.
Electromagnetism.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
that's supposed to represent the nature of our planet, in my opinion. I could be wrong about this. This is just my theory, so no one get mad who's watching. So I would say just kind of cycle through it, store it away in your head, and remember that image.
The name cherubim seems to originate from the Akkadian loan word caribou, which means bless. This word probably explains their role as the ones who bless God with their praises and chants. There are several chapters in the Bible that speak of them, and then you've got frequencies here.
Yeah, I superimpose. I do the highlighting, and I superimpose like words that I think it actually means.
So, in a steel man, frequencies, or just explain it. Explain the frequencies.
So our planet resonates at the same frequency that our brains resonate at. And these frequencies are how we are conscious. It's like we are devices in range of a Wi-Fi router that is broadcasting. So it's hard to explain. Maybe if you want to keep going.
Yeah. So the next one, you put the definition of bless, frequencies, mechanism, where you're superimposed words, pronounce words in a religious rite to confer or invoke divine favor upon. And then you have the breath of life there as well.
And I did all that because I think I put these on in the wrong order, so that's my bad. I think the next one might kind of add context to what all this blessed stuff is about and the cherub stuff.
Seraphim.
Oh, maybe it's the next. I don't know. But yeah, all these things are relevant if people want to study it slower. There we go.
This one, okay. Wing, extremity, edge, winged, border, corner, shirt, garment.
So our planet is robed in this field like a garment. So when we hear wings, we think of like bird wings, but I think that word isn't just for bird wings. And they have translated it wrong, and then that bad translation gets disseminated through churches for centuries, and then people kind of have this image that isn't realistic, in my opinion.
I'm actually super interested in that. Okay, this is something I'm definitely going to spend some time on, because that makes a lot of sense, actually. Just from just the work.
It's so many layers of mythologizing that we get so far away from what was actually trying to be taught, and it's a problem.
Oh, yeah, obviously massive problem, but I think there could really be something to that specifically. I'll look into this too. That makes a lot of sense. The concept is something I don't ever think about other than when we have these types of conversations. But I think you have something with this being one of many, many, many terms that just got mistranslated over and over and over again, and then applied to became a very bland addition
It's like a
to a
comic
text.
book.
That's a good way to say it. Yeah, it becomes like a comic book. This is really interesting. Okay, that's one for me for sure later. Silver cords. So this looks like a zoomed in picture of the last one. It is the smallest of all seeds or cores, but when it has grown, it is larger than all the garden plants and becomes a tree or planetary brain EMF system, so that the birds of the air or spirits come and make nests in its branches, or silver cords. And that was the verse we had read. What are silver cords? Is that the wings?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just the tether we have to the central signal.
Right.
And once we die, it's snapped, and then we go back to the source of that signal.
Right. Wow. Okay. Okay. And then you got Ecclesiastes 12:6-8 here. Before the silver cord is snapped, the golden bowl is broken. The pitcher is shattered at the fountain, the wheel broken at the cistern, and the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Vapor or plasma of vapor, says the preacher. All is vapor. I'm interested. There's a bit here I want to look at.
So they had no word for plasma, but vapor works. And just like earlier when you were talking about Helheim, it said this is the mist hell.
Right.
So like, what is mist? What is vapor? It's just a suspended, just tons of particles in a sort of body. Like we are the body of Christ. We are vapor in that sense. Because if you zoom out far enough, we look like ants. We just look like particles.
Right. Interesting. Okay. We got to do this at some point. Get into some of this stuff. I mean, for a whole deal at some point. Isaiah 66:1, and then Revelation 4:3. Thus says the Lord, heaven, sky is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. What is the house, ark of the accord, that you, Elohim or morning star, would build for me, and what is the place of my rest? And then, and he who sat there had the appearance of Jasper the Carnelian, shining, in parentheses, shining, and around the throne was a rainbow that had the appearance of an emerald. I get where you're going with this, actually. This is not...
I don't think any of these symbols are arbitrary.
No, I don't think they are. And this is... I've never caught a lot of this. The one that really got me was the silver cords, actually. Because now I'm realizing, and I just pulled up all of the mentions of it. And this is something I've just completely ignored. And very rudimentary, trying to, use AI to aggregate answers. There really aren't any. There are garbage answers.
Yeah,
So,
there's nothing out there.
There's not. So some vague mentions of the spine or the nervous system. But then most of it is just people chasing their tail. It's them trying fragile threads. Like, what do you
now?
Using
The spine and
way?
the spine and the nervous system are part of the system,
Right?
that these silver cords operate through. It's like the machinery inside your router. So, like, yeah, it is, but it's not. It's not what it is.
Right,
It's
and
part of it.
They're explaining it as that. So some of these, several ancient commentators associated with the physical structure of the body, possibly the spinal cord, which plays a crucial role in life. I think I agree. It's a part of the system, but it's not the system. And then the rest of these are just they're synonyms. Like there's no explanation. I'm gonna look into it. I'm curious.
But if you look at those synonyms and then understand how the EM field works and all that, then the synonyms start to make sense, like the cistern and the golden bowl and all that.
No. Sorry. That makes sense. That makes sense. I mean that it seems as though biblical commentators have just said the word. Like if I asked you what red was, and you said, or if I asked you what red was, and then I explained it to you by using the same term. I don't know. There's a term to this in language.
Exactly.
It's just that
cyclical reasoning.
Thank you.
Reasoning.
Thank you. Yes, that's what's happening. That's it. The only actual answer that I found is the nervous system. And they're using it directly. So they're saying it is the nervous system, or it is the spinal cord, because it plays a crucial role in life, which I agree with you. I do not agree with that. That I think it's part of the system, but it's not the system. And the rest of it is just circular reasoning, just over and over and over again. So meaning nobody has any idea. But I think what you've got here makes some sense. It's at the very least, it's extremely worth looking into. This has me very interested. Is the next batch, is it similar stuff? I got to roll, but is it the same stuff? Is it on the same track? Or is that in the Norse?
Yeah, it's more Norse, but I do put biblical references in it just to bolster the point.
Okay. All right. I might make Kat go through this with me tonight then, because I want to look through this. I am captivated. This is a moment for me that I love, where I feel that I've completely done the thing I hate, which is overlooking certain things in the Bible. And I'm very curious how I did that with the silver cords. But it happens. Guilty.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's 2 verses in the Bible to talk about it. So
I know, but still, man, shame on me. But
there's only so many hours in a day, man.
I mean, true. I appreciate that. Mind, body, soul, 3 different things. We had that conversation. That was a good conversation. Geoffrey, we did a Tuesday stream on exactly that. So if you're interested, we went over all of that. And it was a super interesting conversation. I'm just trying to look through here real quick because I got to roll, but I don't want to miss anything that was super good. Esmil said, if ignorance is the worst state of a soul, then I think animals must have potential awareness of the divine. I'm torn on animals personally.
I actually heard somebody talk about this whole thing about what is it about like the sun being a brain, being conscious, and its nervous system and gravitational fields are like or its geomagnetic field and its gravitational field are like nervous system and muscles that go out, and the planets are like its limbs. And so the solar system is like one whole big like body with the sun as its center of consciousness. There was some guy on YouTube who was going on and on about this. It's like a whole idea of pan consciousness. So
interesting.
Maybe a little intro to that, yeah.
Yeah, I want to look it up. I'm curious. The fields.
Yeah, panpsychism is like a really good place to start.
Is that essentially what he was talking about?
Yeah. Panpsychism, whatever. Yeah.
Okay. And I gotta broaden myself. Y'all have been down roads I've never even seen. Silver cords look like geomagnetic fields. Okay, I think we're caught up enough. Mikhail said, our beloved plasma mischievous beings. Nervous system equals hardware. EMF is software. Yeah, see, I'm seeing some of that now. I'm seeing your visuals help too. I'm a visual learner, which is unfortunate because of how I take information in, but
it's the only way I can learn, man. Yeah, it really is.
I get it. That's why I I try to draw rudimentary pictures when I explain things to people, and they look like garbage, but I'm like, I can't even picture what I'm talking to you about unless I draw it. I've made Kat look at some atrocious drawings to try to explain things. Plasma is more insul with living waters of the Holy Spirit. I don't know, but I know I have to go. I love you guys. Esmil, it's great to actually talk to you. So hopefully we get more of you later. If you're watching this later, we have a Discord. There's a link in the chat. There's a link in the description. Next live stream is Thursday. I think we might finish the Book of Enoch with the Book of Giants because we're reading them together in tandem. If we finish, I'll have something for us to kind of kill the rest of the time with. And then next week, we'll start something else. So I will post a poll for next Tuesday, and then I'll post a poll for what we read next on Thursday. Which will be something non-canonical. So I'll throw some stuff out there. If anybody wants to read something specifically that's non-canonical, just send it to me or tag me an off topic or something, and then I'll put it in there. Love y'all, love y'all, love y'all. Have a beautiful evening.